So if and when you get to that point, when it's like the most distinguished guest in your eyes, right? And you're like, oh no, what do I do? Like, what do I do? A, you lean into it hard. And B, when you say the name of your podcast, you make it slightly Irish so you can call it All Walks O Fart.
Yes.
But then you don't call attention to it and then move on.
Welcome to the All Walks to Fart.
Yeah, and then you keep going and he's like, wait, what? I'm a sculptor. And which podcast am I on? But then you've already fired him 4 questions and he has to answer them.
Right. As he's eating the
sandwich.
That's Oh wow.
God.
Hello, Michael Warth here, and welcome to episode 33 of the All Walks of Art podcast. On today's show, we are recording this episode for video, and I will hit record, I promise. We talk about a rat named Rosco. We dive into the creative process, and we enjoy tasty beverages while talking about creative stuff. But without further ado, allow me to introduce today's talented and extremely, insanely creative guest, the man who made clouds and dirt shoes propel him to the post office faster than a YouTuber chasing the UPS truck. The maestro of moving magic pixels for a beast of a boss, my friend and Bic pen aficionado. Please welcome to the show, Felix Schlater.
What an intro.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think that's all we need.
I think it is all we need.
That's what I needed for my ego at this moment in time. I think anything else at this point would just be excessive. I will take all those compliments and put them into my tank and then just live out the rest of my life on that intro alone.
Awesome.
That was incredible.
So what are we drinking tonight?
So this is one of my favorites. This is called Hoptopus.
Ooh.
It's a double IPA, local brewery here in Virginia Beach, which is where I live for the time being. It's just a tasty double IPA. You know, I'm a fan of the hops, and the hoppier the better for me. If it makes me thirsty after I drink it, I'm on board.
Awesome. Well, I'm getting something out of Kentucky, but I got to say it like this. Thomas Jefferson was from Virginia, so had to have some Jefferson's Reserve. It says very old. Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, small batch. So it's a nice little tasty sipper. And then I have a beer. I have a beer for later, so I'll bring that out later. I got to do the liquor before beer thing, or I'm in trouble.
Right.
Maybe I don't know. So, but first, I want to talk to you a little bit about a couple of things that are pretty interesting. I want all of my listeners to just kind of get to know Felix. And are you actually from Virginia?
Yes and no. So I am a military brat. My dad is retired Navy, and so we moved to Virginia in 2000. So I've been here for 2 decades. Wow, that's pretty wild. And so I've actually lived here before. But it was just, back and forth from coast to coast, and ended up here.
Very cool. So I remember hearing something about you being in Ohio for a while. Is that true?
It is true. The rumors are true.
Awesome.
So I was in Columbus, Ohio, for 3 years. Like 3 or 4 years. And I've been back a couple times because I've got friends that live there, and I still keep in touch with them. And so, being a military brat, you've got friends kind of peppered all over the states, and so it's nice to keep in touch, and especially when you go on road trips, you're able to just pop in and say hi to different folks. So yeah.
That's really cool. It's really cool. So I met you, for the folks listening, I met you on YouTube. I was perusing the internets, and I was like, well, let's see what these kids on YouTube are doing today. And I don't know how I stumbled on your channel, but I did. And then there was this really cool hashtag that I'd never noticed before. It said Content Creator Collective. And that's actually how I got to know you. So what drove you to create a Discord server for everybody to hang out in?
Fame and money, like everyone else.
Oh yeah,
I just
definitely
just want to be famous on my corner of the internet. You were asking why? Of all the things you could have started, why start a Discord? I think I was kind of just getting into YouTube. I had consumed plenty of YouTube, watched a ton of it, but had really just kind of started like partaking, I guess, for the lack of a better term, uploading my own content and really sort of just getting involved with the community of YouTube rather than just being a passerby. And so I think as I started to do that, I realized that I didn't have anyone around me in my immediate surroundings of folks who I just didn't have anyone around me who was making stuff particularly for YouTube. Plenty of creative friends who were writing music or shooting wedding films or things like that, but no one around me was really focusing on like, let's create internet content for the sake of internet content.
Right.
And so I'm the kind of person where if I jump into something, I have to surround myself with people who are doing it as well, because I know I tend to burn out pretty quick. And if I'm around people who are doing it, it motivates me to keep doing it. And so I knew early on, like, I think this is something I want to explore. So I should very quick off the jump here, try and surround myself with as many people as I can who are doing the same thing. And so I've hopped into a couple of other Discords, and I wanted to kind of start my own just to see if I could find some folks who were in the same boat as me. And it's been awesome just to see it grow. People who hopped in and like to make stuff. And I mean, it's like, it's our own little corner of the internet. It's fantastic.
A lot of people are really good at one thing.
Sure.
And it seems like you dive in and you get into something. And the reason I'm bringing this up and not throwing you a bunch of fluff is that
no, it's great. You can keep doing it. It's awesome.
Yeah, right. Do you think that any of that has any kind of a negative impact on you, or is it all part of the machine for you?
It definitely can have a negative impact in that the things that I maybe should be focusing on at the time might take a back seat, and some of those things might sometimes be important. But I think it all kind of just boils down to priority. Mm-hmm. I wanted to say obsession there because that's quite frankly what it really is. And so for me, when I am interested in something, it's like I go all in on it. I really get interested in that thing, whatever it is, and almost to a fault. People are like, "Are you still doing this?" And so, and when you spend your time doing something, you just naturally get better at it. And I've learned early on that when you want to get better at something, you find people who are much better at that thing than you, and you either learn from them or you compete with them, or all of those things are going to sharpen you in whatever it is you're doing. And so early on, it was skateboarding, it was guitar, it was drums, it was I was a gymnastics coach for a while, so I did gymnastics.
I didn't know that.
I was on swim team, so it was athletics, and it was the arts, and it was just all these different things. And I think whatever it was that landed on my plate that I decided to put my focus into, it wasn't even I have to be the best at this. It was, I wonder how good I can get at this thing for no other reason other than like, oh wow, I'm better today than I was yesterday. And I don't think it ever really crossed my mind to say, like, I'm going to be a professional skateboarder, or I'm going to be a studio drummer and get paid to do these things. It was just more about the game of how good can I get at this thing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think I've always just kind of had that. I've just met so many people who've been like, how come you're not filthy rich? And I say, I don't know. How come I'm not filthy rich? You tell me. I guess it just never really, until recently with this whole like YouTube thing, like, oh wow, I could make a lot of money doing this.
Yeah.
But it's never been my priority to say like, how can I kill this golden goose? I guess is that the analogy? I don't know how that works.
That's interesting. There's so many people who I think who aren't very creative. I don't want to pick on anybody who doesn't make something. I don't know why anybody wouldn't. I can't fathom why you wouldn't just wake up one morning and say, what can I make today? Because that's kind of what life is for me. But
it's the dream.
Do you find that anytime you compare yourself to somebody, I know you're striving to get better at something, because everybody who is good at something has basically sat down and said, I want to strive to be better. Mm-hmm. But has there ever been a time where you just kind of got down and said, I just can't do this. These people are so much better than me, and they're awesome. I can't do that. I mean, because I know there's people listening. I guess I should qualify this. There are people listening, myself included, who at times can get down and say, I'm just going to keep working at the factory,
Sure. I think, comparison can be a really strong motivator, but it can also be quite poisonous if you're not careful with it. And I think I've just never really had the mindset of like, I'm going to beat the crap out of this person in this thing. It was always wow, look what's possible, And I think it's like that whole thing where like up until a certain point, human beings it was known, like, we'll never run a 6-minute mile. And then some schmuck was like, I did it. And then everyone was like, oh, well, duh. And now no one can run a 5-minute mile. And then some schmuck again was like, oh yeah, I did that too. And then everyone was like, oh wow, well, no one will ever run a 4-minute mile, and so it just keeps going. And there are people who hear that and go, I'm tired, I'm done, I'm out. But then there's like that one guy, that one schmuck who's like, I wonder if I could. I bet I could.
Right.
And then,
right.
Training montage, Chariots of Fire sort of thing. And then boom, 4-minute mile. And so I've always tried to use comparison in a sense of just like, look what's possible.
Yes.
Look what you can do. And you also have to look at context of like, okay, who is this person? Like, did they just spend 16 hours a day for the last 10 years of their life? Well, of course they're that good at that thing because that's all they do. But you tell them to microwave minute rice and they're not going to know how long to microwave it because all they've done is learn to play classical guitar. So, there's a give and take to it all.
Yeah.
So I think by using that sort of balance, that check and balance to say, okay, that's what's possible if it takes it out of that sort of toxic environment of like, can't stand how good that guy is.
Yeah.
Now child prodigy on their hand, we can all equally hate them for their skill.
Yeah, definitely hate those people. Awesome. Yep.
Hate the youth.
And I'm the old one here. I can.
Those kids and their talent.
Yeah. I find that a lot, just in my age group and above. I got friends who are like, dude, what are you doing on YouTube? That's for kids, And I look at TikTok, and we're gonna get to that later. But I look at TikTok, and I'm like, I don't fit in here, man. I can't dance. I don't do anything fun. I mean, I guess I can mix drinks, and there just kind of like, there it is, show a little drawing of it in the background.
So Jordan and I start drinking like an hour and a half before we start rolling.
Well, that handles it.
And the thing is, we start rolling like when we get there. So even when we've both got our laptops open and we're typing in what we need, and we bring pounders, and then we bring like the beer, and then we have pounders. So it's like you're already tipsy by the time you're finishing up the last few like notes, but there's already some gems in there.
Yeah.
So the trick is just be hammered.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right. You can't be too serious about this stuff. You really can't.
Right. So, you hear about social lubricant, like you need to be like hot tubbing in it. You're just like, you're just WD-40, social WD-40, ready to roll. Cause like there's been times when we've had, I think we did a Guinness episode, and I think we each had like 5 or 6, and we're just like, this isn't working. And we've had to pee like 12 times.
Right. They're only 4%.
Like, this is not working. This is not doing it. So yeah. And so I think we've started bringing liquor to the podcast and just doing like a couple shots and then a couple pounders and then we start rolling. Like, well, we'll be rolling anyway.
Yeah.
Because I think the mindset, it's so hard to get past the mindset of like, me and Jordan are just hanging out and having a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you immediately are like, so Jordan, how, tell me about that one time. And, you know, we both slip into that persona because it's, I mean, you got a fucking microphone
Right.
and thing. Like, it's like, how are you not supposed to do that?
Right.
But I think by hitting record early and then by getting into that mode while all this stuff is rolling, you just tune it out and then you just start talking to the person sitting across from you.
Yeah.
And in the number of episodes we've recorded, I feel like there's only been, at least in my eyes, maybe like 3 or 4 times that's legitimately happened where we've just been like, wow, I feel like that's the conversation we would have had if we were at the bar, you and me, or if I was at your house or you were at my house. Like, that's the conversation we legitimately would have had.
Yep.
But it's hard to get to that mode when it's like, okay, are you ready to be funny? Okay, let's do it. Okay, ready? All the wittiness right now. Okay, I need you to put away all of the staged comedy and right now authenticity. Ready?
Yep.
Now.
Yeah.
So Jordan, how was your day? Like, it's like, how do you do that?
Right.
You can't. You just can't.
Yeah.
So you have to ease into it, and so it's usually the back half. That's where the good stuff happens.
You're in Virginia right now, and I'm in Ohio right now. So we're doing this over the internet. It's a really cool kind of a thing that we have nowadays. I mean, I remember as a kid, this was not even thought of. I mean, not even on Star Trek, you know?
I'm going to dial up a stranger on the internet and talk to them.
Yeah.
I'm going to have them look at my face, and I'm going to look at their face, and we're going to look at each other's faces, and we're going to talk.
And we're going to wave.
Yeah, and then I'm going to give him my phone number.
Hell
and
yeah.
He's going to give me his phone number. So at any point during the day, if he wants me to see his face, it's possible because of a rectangle in my pocket.
Yeah, absolutely. Drinking with
bizarre.
Strangers.
That's a show.
It is. I hate talking about gear too much, but at the same time, I love talking about gear. We've talked about your microphone a little bit. How has gear actually helped you as an artist? Or hindered?
You know, it definitely is one of those things where you don't like to rely on it too much. You want to tell people who are starting out, like, don't think you need gear list ABC or XYZ to do a thing. And for the most part, that's true. If the story's good, if what it is you're trying to say is done so in a creative way, in a concise way, it's gonna get said and it's going to be shared. But there is something to be said too about a solid story and a well-made point where it's also beautifully shot and the sound design is gorgeous. So, you know, it's like, you know, these viral videos that go viral that are shot on an iPhone and the guy is inside of a magic bullet or something, like the shaky camera and like the poor quality, and yet it still has 80 bajillion views.
Right.
It's like, okay, that kind of adds to the charm of it. And there's plenty of like, you know, little short films and things that people have shot that have gone mega viral that aren't super high quality. But I think using what you have is important. And I think as you start to learn how to use those tools, you can upgrade to something that's a little shinier and a little heavier and makes you a little more sad if you drop it and break it. But it should never be a hindrance to the initial idea. If you've got an idea, you gotta use what you got and you gotta execute on it, because, you know, it'll never get made. If you just like sit here and talk about it all day and go, man, wouldn't it be cool if, and then nothing.
Right.
And nowadays phones are so powerful. Like if you've got an iPhone, iPad, like these things are so ridiculously strong now. It's like, why do I even carry around a DSLR anymore? It doesn't make any sense.
Right. I find that gear often kind of gets in the way, you know, and I'm kind of a gear nut. I have to do this. I have to do that. And actually, as we were sitting here chatting, I realized that even though I got everything going, I'm looking over at my battery. I'm like, why is my battery not going down at all?
Yep.
It's because I didn't hit the little red button that said record. So I've got audio, but I don't have any video. So that's okay. That's okay.
Well, we got video of me, so for the first 21 minutes, it can just be me, baby.
That's absolutely
just
right.
Like,
and
guys.
we can cut, we can play, no big deal.
That's
but
great.
I think, and I knew this was going to happen. I did. Anytime you sit down with a lot of different things and trying to get schedules going, and I wolfed down half a pizza before this, and other things.
You better for it.
Yeah. I don't know. I was concentrating on some other things, but gear. I really want to express this to anybody listening. Gear, you don't have to have it. You just don't. I hear it all the time. I use Panasonic for recording video, and people are like, "Oh, dude, you need automatic focus, and how do you do that?" And it's not hard. Right. Most of the time the camera's within reach. Right now it's like way far away. I can't reach it, but use an iPhone. You can do what you got to do. All right. That's where I'll throw in the little ad that All right. For those of you just tuning in, I had a major faux pas, total screw up, total fuck up on my end where I didn't basically record the first 20 minutes, and that's how it goes. So
Mike and I just had a conversation, just a human to human conversation.
Yeah.
And you all missed it.
You did. I'm going to edit all that out so you don't have to see it. But basically, this is the whiskey that I've put down the first segment of the show, and it's called Jefferson's Reserve. So if you're listening, you already know all that. But we're gonna play around with technology a little bit on this part of the show. I'm going to move on to something a little bit easier. And I was actually thinking of you when I did this.
Oh boy,
because I know, at least I recall seeing you drink a stout. Is that right?
I love
porters and stouts. Well, I didn't plan this. I didn't know he was going to drink an IPA. I almost got an IPA, and I was looking for something in Virginia and North Carolina. Again, we'll get to that in a minute. But I love Dragon's Milk. Right?
Hey,
This one's one I've not seen before. This is Dragon's Milk White. It's a bourbon barrel aged white stout.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I've never tried that one before.
It's only 6.5%, or it's only 6% too, so it should be easy to drink. In terms of not knocking me out like some of their other Dragon's Milks. But in going along with the theme of the bourbon and all that, I'm not talking into my mic, but going on with all the bourbon and stuff, I think this is a pretty good one. And I'm going to pour this in a goblet because you mentioned goblet. Plus, it helps
I feel
people.
like Michael Warth and goblets are synonymous.
Yeah, I got to have a goblet. But basically, this is what's so interesting about this. When you say stout, that's not what you expect to see.
No.
So,
it looks like an IPA.
Yeah, it does. It's pretty neat. I've had one of these from Stone, which is from Virginia. I didn't plan that either, but not from Virginia, but Southern California, and they have a place in Virginia. Called this, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. It's one of their something projects. It starts with an S. I never say it right, but anyway. So cheers to you, and thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We just got done talking about a lot of different stuff, but I wanted to ask you, what's next for you? Why is North Carolina such an issue for you today? Why are you painting your ceilings and wearing yourself out every night at your old house?
Well, for those of you who are listening to this 10 years in the future, we are currently in the middle of a global pandemic, and we have to all stay home and distance ourselves socially, which normally would be okay for folks like us, people who would just much rather keep our heads down and our nose in a sketchbook or whatever. But I am in the middle of a job transition. And a job transition that takes me across state lines, which means I have to sell the current home that I'm in. and I do this because this is the home that I'm Vanna Whiting for those of you listening. I'm just gonna do as much visual,
right, yeah,
as many visual cues as I can, so that people listening will just be like, "Oh God, okay, fine, I'll watch this stupid podcast."
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a whole miming segment, just 17 minutes of silence where we just sign language to each other.
Well, it's really gonna be funny when I leave it all black in the beginning. Like, I thought this was a video, man.
I play with cameras. So I am switching jobs. I am leaving my home here in Virginia of 20 years to move to North Carolina to work for one MrBeast, who is for those of you who are uninitiated, he's a YouTuber, and quite frankly, one of the biggest YouTubers in the world. He's currently at 32 million subscribers, 33 million. I haven't checked. It seems like it's changing every day. But yeah, I will be switching from doing video and social media work here in Virginia to doing strictly social media content creation for MrBeast, which is insane. Like, thinking about it and saying it out loud, it still doesn't sound real. It's like this weird fairy tale like job. Like, I'm gonna go make fairy dust and sprinkle it on people, and they're gonna give me money. Is basically what I'm gonna. Actually, fun story. I went to go deposit the first round of checks that I got from him because I'm not on the direct deposit yet. So I took the check to the bank and I handed it to the teller, and she looked at it, and it was like 3 or 4 checks, like just a bunch of them. And she like looks at it, and then she looks at me, and she's like, "Where do you work?" And I was like, "Oh God, how do I start this story?" I work for a YouTuber. She was like, "Oh, what?" I should have just said drugs. That would have been easier to explain. I manufacture drugs in my basement. That would have been way easier. She would have been like, "Oh, drugs. I know what drugs are. I don't know what YouTube is, but drugs I understand, which is why this check got it. Okay, drugs. 1 drug check deposited. Do you want that in small bills? Oh, big bills because it's drugs. Here's that's
signed Jimmy Heisenberg."
Yeah, basically, Jimmy Drugs is his name. Gosh, it's just such a weird thing to be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go work for a guy who makes videos for YouTube," and they're like, "Isn't YouTube free?" I'm like, yes, you're absolutely right. It's free. But so is TV, unless you're paying for cable, in which case it's not. But she had a very hard time understanding.
Yeah. I gotta ask too, since we were talking about age there, was she older or was she?
She didn't look like she looked like maybe she was in her 30s. I'm in my 30s. She
should be able to figure that out. Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, I'd understand if she's 47,
47. When you're 47, that's when they kick you off on an iceberg, right? And they just send you off to die.
Yeah, I'm in a bad place. I really am, especially with all this turmoil on the internet these days. I'm not a millennial and I'm not a boomer, but I identify with both. So no matter where I go, the old people kick my ass and the young people kick my ass, and I'm just kind of stuck in the middle, There
you go. And here we are recording a podcast.
Yeah.
Well, the second half of a podcast. The first half was just darkness.
Yeah. I can't believe I did that. And I really
never know.
I really enjoyed the facial expressions I was giving to the intro. That was perfect. Maybe if it's like a mix pre, do you think maybe I have like when you hit the beginning, when you hit the record, you get like a safety record in the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not.
All you have to do is go back through and listen to it in ADR and then just mime the first half of it. And just your video. Right. And then just do this and you're like, is he saying? I feel like he's not talking.
I could always just
Is he okay?
I could just pretend I wasn't in sync. I'd be like,
yeah. Or just loop the same 3 seconds from the back half of this video.
Right. I mean, the whole episode is going to be on YouTube and the podcasting whatever that magic is that puts out
Podcast world.
Yeah. But yeah, it'll be out there. But such is life. It's what happens. I got to be honest with you. I was only focused on the booze because and Paul's not here. When Paul's not here, I don't know what to do. Right. We're kind of like I like to think of us as the two in that TV or that movie that film.
Batman and Robin.
No, you're close.
Green Hornet and Kato.
No, not superheroes, dude.
Sonny and Cher.
look at this.
Batman and Robin.
Fat Man and Robin. No, the alien. The alien. They're going around the world. Paul the alien.
Paul.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't know who is like Paul and Simon Pegg.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Nick Frost and
I'm more
Simon
of a Nick
Pegg.
Frost than a Simon Pegg, clearly. But I feel like I'm missing all my little cues. This is when Paul kind of jumps in on me and looks at me, and then there's a Jackson Pollock thing, and then there's a Nickelback thing, and then we lose more listeners. But anyway, I gotta just talk. We got to talk about more stuff with you because I don't want to get out of this show without getting all of the just of Felix Schlater. So
the juicy deets.
Yeah.
They say
you have a podcast, which is just fantastic. You and Jordan Stratton, just kind of. I mean, I listen to it a lot, just as I'm painting and drawing. Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
I packed an extra beer in a cooler
Yours
because I didn't want it to be warm.
Right.
It's legit. There's an ice pack.
Yeah.
And this is cold. You can see. I'm shooting in 4K. You can see
the water
folks.
droplets.
This is podcast preparedness.
Yeah.
We're in a pandemic.
Well, yours is a little more manly than mine. I brought one too.
Yes.
And wow, it's pretty cool stuff. I got water over here, but
oh, I do too.
Mine's secretly positioned behind the candle. That way, when I go to grab it, it's like, ow.
Got it. You accidentally drink candle wax.
You don't need no stinking water, man. Oh well. Where were we? We were talking about your podcast. Tell me about that. How are you guys gonna do that? You gonna do it like this? Or are you gonna make Jordan drive to you every time?
I think the plan is to have one of us forget to turn on the camera for the first half of the podcast, and then just show blackness.
Yeah.
And then, it's all the rage.
I just about had dragon's milk out of my nose. That would have been hilarious on all this equipment.
The plan is to socially distance ourselves while being closer than ever. This microphone is slowly lowering itself as I talk. It's hilarious. It's so funny. It's so funny to just watch it Which, side note, one of the funniest moments of my life, I was having a conversation. This has nothing to do with Jordan and the podcast. We'll get to Jordan. Jordan has.
We got time.
I was having lunch with a gentleman who was he was affiliated with my work, and he was talking about a project or something. But we went to go get food. He said, "You want to go get some lunch?" And I said, "Absolutely. I love lunch. Lunch is one of those things I think about all the time, every single day, all day." And so we went and we got barbecue, and he got himself a pulled pork sandwich. Delicious. And so he's talking the whole time, and his tray of food is just sitting there. Like, he hasn't touched it. You can tell he wants to, but he hasn't touched it because he's talking. So I'm scarfing my food down.
Right.
I don't hear a word he's saying because I'm thinking, how is he going to pause in the middle of him talking and take a bite of his food? And so I kept lobbing him one word, 2-word answer. Just oh, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. And then just eating my food while he was eating his food. And so I'm going to use my phone. This is his sandwich. And so I guess he had just gotten to the point where he was fed up with it. And so he starts talking and he's making a point. And as he's making a point, he's slowly leaning down to his sandwich and he just continues to talk to me while he's saying what he needs to say. And he says, it's just one of those things I just really understand. And I was watching this whole situation unfold. He was here. And I think with every like mouth open and like consonant and vowel, it was like he was like gumming his sandwich. I'm like, dude, just take a bite. Just take a bite of your food. I feel so bad, but at the same time, I need to see this situation play out.
That's fantastic.
So Jordan's good. He yeah, we're gonna socially distance our podcast. All the gear is currently at my house, facility, environment, and so we need to get him all of the equipment and set up and basically do this number. So yeah, he's been super busy with stuff. I've been absolutely insane. I had even told him that I was recording a podcast with you. He'd be like, "What the hell, dude? We haven't recorded a podcast, and you're off recording podcasts with other." I'll tell him I was thinking of him the whole time.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, too, this is only the second time I've even attempted to do video with a podcast. The first one was just we threw up an iPhone and
it's working
and
great.
Said, let's do this and blah blah blah. And I thought, well, this will be perfect for social distancing. And every time I put out a feeler on my server for Discord and even your server for Discord, it's hilarious because everybody's just
Scatter.
chatting, and as soon as I go, hey, does anybody want to test? I hear nothing.
His vision's based on movement.
Yeah, he's going to see us.
I told you early on though, I was down to podcast with you. So
and I don't want to pick on people either because I know everybody's
No, let's
got
do
a
it.
lot
Let's say names. Let's call people out.
If we're going to do names.
It's your podcast. We can do whatever you want.
Well, he dropped into my server here a little bit ago. I wrote in the Discord server on my end, the Mike's Lounge. I said, "Dole, I forgot to hit record on my camera."
Oh, no.
And poor Genki jumped in. He says, "You're like me." Poor guy. He breaks everything.
Well, then he knows what works and what doesn't.
Right. But I will say, he is the only one that showed up in my server when I said, hey, we're going to be on the show, blah, blah, blah. So anyway,
there you go.
Shaming everybody out on my server, Hey, guys.
What a guy.
Yeah. So I got like a sandwich going here.
So, he's just a really important guy to the server. Just really enjoy having him. And it's great that he's the only one that showed up when we were asking about people who wanted to listen in. So I really appreciate his support and just everything. It almost went up my nose.
Oh, no. That would have been horrible. IPA
it's a full beer. It's a full beer.
I actually feel bad for the guy, just because it's, how when you have like food in front of your dog and it's like, there you go. Just no.
Oh, I was probably sitting like this. Like he was talking to my face and I was just my plate was clean. So I didn't have anything else to do.
And the one word answers. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely I do.
Oh. So I got to ask because we didn't share this with our listeners here. What is the name of your podcast?
The name of the podcast that myself and Jordan Stratton host is called I Don't Want to Grow Up. We call it Idwigu because it's a very long name for a podcast. But basically we find topics where that topic was pertinent when we were kids, and it's still something that we may do or experience or live today as adults, and then we decide through a very scientific process of drinking and laughing and riffing, we decide if that thing was better as kids or if it's better now as adults. So things like travel or Christmas or exercise or all of these things, television, movies. It's just one of those things where you grow older and you think, wow, this thing, ABC, sucks now. And then you think, why did I like this so much as a kid? And so it's rather than just that being a single thought, we delve into that over a period of an hour
Right.
and get absolutely nothing done because we get more and more hammered as the episode progresses, and then we reach a conclusion. It's good fun. It's quite entertaining.
I want to get chocolate wasted.
Chocolate wasted. That's us. Yeah, we're chocoholics, but instead of chocolate, it's alcohol.
Yeah, it's good times. I enjoy every episode. It's just fantastic.
Thank you.
I messed up
that.
a painting because of it once. I was drawing along and I giggled and oh no, now it's a Jackson Pollock. All right, so I got to ask you, you've got a rat. You've got a rat that you've made famous. You've got this little rat that basically, and people don't necessarily think of a rat as a celebrity.
Sure.
But this little thing, this dude, this long-legged, long-armed, creepy little rat. How did that get in your head?
Oh gosh. So, you are referring to Rosco.
Mm-hmm.
His name, the origin of his name, I purposely intend on keeping a secret on how I got his name. The name of this rat and how I got to his name is actually very, very, very near and dear to my heart.
Photogels.
And yeah. And so I may at some point divulge how I got his name, but today is not that day. What do we say to the god of death? Not today. I think it's funny to switch the accent up in like the middle of that. Like,
right.
What do we say to the god of death? Not today, please.
So yours is better than mine. I just sound like I'm a dirty man,
Why, that's so funny. You just Cheech and Chong. Not today, friend. What? You want to say what to the god of death? So Rosco is just kind of this weird sort of creation out of a lot of the things that I love. So animation, like old school animation. I grew up watching Looney Tunes, the Tex Avery stuff, like just absolutely loved it. And I used to wake up like super early and didn't want to wake my parents up. So I would watch Looney Tunes on mute. And so just like the visual gags alone of those shows, of the series was enough. You didn't even need the sounds.
Yeah.
When you turn the sounds on, obviously it added to it. But the animation was just so good. It was just so good. And so it was a lot of that combined with like street art and culture and just music and it's just this weird amalgamation of the things that I love kind of manifested themselves into this freaking rat. One day I was just doodling and he just popped out of nowhere, and he's not very different. Like, when you look at like Bart Simpson, when Matt Groening first drew him, and you look at Bart Simpson now, you're like, what were you thinking? He looks nothing like, the first few iterations of Rosco were slightly different, but he's like, I feel like I've kind of hit like, this is how you draw who Rosco is. And he's got a couple of things that are telltale. You've got the sort of bandage across his nose. You've got the bandage across one of his arms. You've got the little tag out of his ear, and his freaking shoes are always untied. And all of those things are on purpose. Those all have significant meaning to me.
Oh, really?
So I've tied a lot of those things into his character. And just the way I draw him and the things that I put him in, I always try and think of something that is important to me, whether it was a moment in time or a friend or a memory or any of those things. I try and implement that into anything that I do or draw or paint. So this one in particular, like, I'll show it to the main camera. He's holding a water bottle, but not very well because it's spilling out everywhere and all the bottles are spilling out, and there's a real rat on a balloon. He's like, dude, what are you doing? Come back. And
That is so cool. That's a hydro flask, right?
This is a hydro flask.
Yep.
I've dropped it multiple times. It's got scratches and stuff on it. And then these guys right here, the instigators, they're just always yelling.
The instigators.
So I've got stuff on here that's like, this one doesn't have a whole lot of like the paraphernalia that I try and include in all of the pieces. And actually the shirt on here, I don't know if you can see that on your...
Yeah.
So that is the logo for a band called MXPX. And that is one of my wife's favorite bands. She grew up listening to MXPX, and they had this little punk rock dude. And so I try and incorporate it's fun to me to build universes.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more stuff you can kind of tie in from things that you already know that you love, when people recognize that, it becomes this instant bond. And I actually had someone comment on the YouTube video for this. They were like, I'm so happy that you put MXPX on this t-shirt. And that, I mean, it does. It becomes an instant sort of thing that people recognize and they bond with. And like, okay, I understand the vibe of who this person is. I get what you're doing here. I'm on board. So never call attention to it. Never say like, check this out or look at this thing that I did. Like, it's just always very subdued. You know, I enjoy that style of art, of comedy, of music, of film, of literature. I love this subdued importance when you do something that is so big and important, but you don't say anything about it. It to me, you feel more attached to it when you notice it.
Yeah.
Rather than being like, look at this. It's just, you feel like you earned something. You feel like you got there on your own if you arrive at that conclusion yourself. To me, that, I don't know. There's just something about that connection that you can't fake. And if you can create that, you win.
I think it's, it's comedy timing, but it's also, in your case, creative timing. You do this in your videos too. There's a lot of that, just subtlety. The Clouds and Dirt video, I got to bring that up because I mentioned that in the intro. Mm-hmm. I busted out laughing when you took off running down the street, but you stopped for lemonade, right? It's like, gotta have lemonade from the poor little girl out in front selling lemonade on the street. That was that bit of comedy just drives the creativity through the roof, in so many ways.
Fun fact about that lemonade, the family that I asked if I could flash run in front of their house and use their kid as like a lemonade stand, whatever. They said, sure, we don't have lemonade though. And I said, that's fine, whatever you can serve. So they ended up putting water and orange juice and lemon juice into a pitcher. So it looked like lemonade, and it was so hot that day. It was like 104 that day.
Oh, wow.
And I was running around in pants because I was like, it's going to look cooler. So, I don't know. So I was running around in pants, and it was so hot. I drank the whole thing. It was so gross. It was orange juice, water, lemon juice, and something else to make it look like yellowish. It was disgusting, but I drank the whole thing. Fun fact,
didn't know
behind
that.
the scenes.
And that was Jordan making the little card house, right?
Jordan, it was at the end. Yeah, he made the house of cards at the end. Yeah,
I'll put a link to the video in my description on YouTube so folks can go see that, and on the podcast itself there'll be a link. But it's absolutely hilarious. You got to go see it. It was actually a promo video, right?
Yep, that was one of the many facets that led me to selling my home and moving to North Carolina to work for MrBeast, actually.
So you never know. Yeah. You never know, kids. Make that stuff, put it out there, and do your thing, because eventually the beast will bite you.
The beast that bites back.
No, that's pretty cool. That was for me as a creator, because I latched onto this whole YouTube thing thinking, how can I put fine art? I'm clearly not Bob Ross, so I don't want to have a PBS show and do a thing. I like Bob. Don't get me wrong. That's not where I'm going with that.
Imagine if you just took a stance on like how much you hate Bob Ross.
I know,
like no one ever was like, what I hate. I hate.
I think I'd get 3 copyright strikes right away. I'd be done. But no, it's kind of one of them things where I thought to myself, if I if I decide I'm going to do something visual in video, I've got to do this. Well, I'm a Nikon guy, right? So say no more. But I could never get those cameras to ever do what I want. And they're older. I got a Nikon D800E and I've got a Nikon D600. And I go clear back to the film days with Nikon. And I really felt like I was, ditching I thought I was getting a divorce is what it felt like when I kept saying, I got to get a different camera, man. I can't do this with this anymore, you know? It's like,
we've been through so much.
I know, right? And it's like, I'm looking at it going, but you've got 2 card slots. You've got 2 card slots, anyway, all the rage. But I thought to myself, why can't I keep shooting Nikon and go get me a camera that does what I needed to do? And of course, everybody harassed me because, you bought a Panasonic. They don't do good, this and that. But they're perfect for me because the record limits and the things that I want to use them for. And then I noticed as I'm going on, I was like, man, my audio just doesn't, it's not good, and audio, I think in a video, I think audio is about 70%, 80% of the whole package,
Oh, absolutely.
And that's one of the things I love about your videos. There's so much sound design that goes into everything. I mean, it might even be like Clueless, but there's a noise there. And you go,
right.
What was that? And it's like, that's really cool. So on our server again, or on your server, I should say, I was just, I don't want to start a podcast. And I got to thinking it might be good for my audio skills to do this. I mean, as a drummer, I've been around a lot of stuff, and I've got a recording workshop school just down the road from me. And it's, I've recorded there for years. And I thought to myself, there's no reason for me not to know how to do this at all, know? Because I mean, in video, and you've seen it, I'm sure too, with your music as well. Video, the YouTube community, I don't want to say we're behind on audio, but we kind of are. It's like, okay, look, there's a toy microphone we can buy. That toy microphone will make your video sound so much better.
Yeah.
But you realize that, and people see these microphones in front of our faces and things. They think, I don't need all that, and yeah, you kind of do. I mean, you really got to go with where things are at. And so I don't feel like the podcast led me astray because I basically, this harkens back to a thing I did many years ago where I just like to sit down and talk to people over a drink. So this is like, I was tailor-made for this, and I'm not good at it. I'm not Joe Rogan, but, yet.
Watch out, Joe.
That's right,
I know
Joe.
you're listening.
Yeah. If you paint, you're in trouble, dude.
Don't fall asleep, Joe.
Right. I'll draw little pictures on your face.
I'll draw pictures of you sleeping, Joe.
But yeah, that kind of led me to things. And that's why I say, for a lot of people, and we've on this show, we've talked about community a lot. You really do need to surround yourself with people who inspire you and lift you up and also tell you when you're not doing a very good job, because it's like, if you're not, you have to be, I don't want to say thick skinned, but you kind of have to be willing to take some criticism from people who do know what they're doing. And that's the cool thing about communities and things like that. Do you see yourself with your new career just being able to elevate higher because of the team MrBeast has?
I hope so. I mean, I've had 2 interactions with the team so far, and both were roughly a week long. And it really was nothing but positive experience. And like it's going to be weird being one of the oldest ones on staff. And I actually had to, when I first met with them and met with Jimmy, I had to kind of lay out some stipulations to say, like, you guys are running this multi-million-dollar company, which is amazing. You guys could have called anybody, but you called me, which you'll never know how grateful I am for this opportunity. But at the same time, as someone who is a decade older than most of you, I have different priorities than you. And so, this like working until 9, 10, 11 p.m. every single night and then working weekends because you're trying to get a product out when you're 20, that's great. Like, do it, do it. You don't have any other obligations. Do it. I can't do that. I've got different obligations. And I frankly, I told them, I said, like when I'm here in the office and I'm on the clock and I'm working for you, like I'm going to give you 1010%. Like I'm going to give you everything that I got. I'm going to give you the ideas. And I know that there's times when it is all hands on deck, and you know what? Same thing, 1000%. But I can't make it a normal thing. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, next week, same thing. Like I'm working till 10 p.m. tonight. I'm working weekends all weekend, like, that kind of a thing. But he looked at me and he said, yeah, I get it. Like that's totally fine. And he appreciated that I laid that out for him right then and there. And I think that, coupled with the fact that I'm working with guys that are hungry for it, and guys who are doing things that I'm going to learn a ton. I'm going to offer everything that I know how to do. I'm going to do my best to elevate my little corner of the market while I'm there and say, like, here's my ideas and here's what I can do for you guys. But I don't want to go in saying, like, I'm going to change everything, because that would be dumb and that would be incorrect, because I know that I'm going to learn way more from these folks than I am going to be able to contribute. Now, my hope is that I can contribute enough to them where they say, I think we'll keep paying you to hang out with us. We'll let you continue supporting your family while you're here, since you've, sold your home and moved here. But I'm excited to work with them, because while they might be younger than me, I look at myself when I was that age, a decade younger. I don't think I was that hungry. I was hungry for sure. I wanted it. I didn't know what it was. And maybe this is it, what you and I are doing right now. Like this is, I want to be able to sit here and do this without worrying about the shifts I have to work over the next, like, 20 days, so I can, like, here's my bills and here's what I'm making.
Right.
And unfortunately a lot of us are in that point right now, which sucks. But to me, success was like, here's living and the necessary, what you need to do, and here's where you land. So then you don't have to, like, I remember being 20 and my friends saying, hey, you want to go see a movie? And it's like, hang on, let me check my bank account real quick.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I can see one movie this week.
Yep.
Right? So versus like, hey, you want to go see a movie? Like, oh, I've got the time. Let's do it. Like, to me, that was success. And so to go in with that mindset and that sort of, I guess, quote, I have to put quotes, security into this environment where these kids are going to teach me more. Like, I'm going to get an education there.
Yeah.
like the education I'm going to get there is going to be second to none. Because it's one thing to say, like, I can get you 1 million subscribers on YouTube. And then you say, okay, great. Here's a check. Get me there. Or, hey, you want to come work for me? I've got 33 million subscribers. Like, you're clearly doing something right. Yeah. I'm going to do as much as I can to listen and learn what it is you're doing.
Absolutely.
Not be a bother, and contribute what I can, because clearly there's something you saw in me that you want. I'm going to give you everything that I've got in that realm and then some, and say, here, take it. How can I conform this to what it is you need? But then hopefully take what I learned and apply it to what I'm doing, So I don't know. I'm excited to see what that give and take looks like with that team. And just in the week and a half, 2 weeks that I've had to interact with them, I'm so excited. These kids are, like, I keep saying kids. They're not kids. They're insanely smart. They're insanely talented. They're like, you know, I've always hated that term, like these kids, because they're not. They're like they're working in an industry right now that's well, if this isn't the tent pole and whatever, if they go off to do something else, they're gonna be fine.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So, you know,
it's a new economy too. I mean, there's people who just don't get it. I work in a factory, and we've talked about this a little bit on the show that, you know, I grew up in the 70s and kind of came to age in the 80s. So I'm kind of like your, when people were watching Stranger Things thinking it was kind of cool, that was my generation. That's what it was like. I mean, you rode
what was the Upside Down like?
Well,
You didn't grow up in the 70s.
yeah, it was a little bit different. I mean, I don't know. I had the big walkie-talkie too, you know, with the 6-foot antenna. But
Yeah.
there's a little bit of, I think any adult, any creative especially, I think, and Picasso said this really good. You know, you never really grow up. You just kind of keep trying to be that child and do what you did then. And even though you've got responsibilities today, you've got kids, you've got a wife, you've got a mortgage, you got things you got to worry about. I think there still is a magic when you can kind of grab a hold of that youth.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're surrounded by other young people and you're young at heart, you're never really getting old. That's the way I look at it. I might appear old, but you know,
You're 17. I
right?
get it.
I guess, yeah. A lot of late nights.
I think I about broke one of the guy's brains while I was there. I was helping them with something, and I guess the conversation naturally steered to like, wait, so how old are you? I was like, how old do you think I am? And he guessed a number. And I said, yeah, that's it. That's the number I am. That's how old I am. You got it. He goes, no, but for how old are you? And I told him. And he's just kind of looked at me. He said, what? I said, oh, not only that, I hit the 10-year mark in my marriage, and I've got 2 kids, 5 and 7. He's like, that doesn't make any sense.
How does this happen?
Yeah. And I said, look, I'm going to look this way until I'm 50. And then when I'm 50, I'm going to look 450. So it's, you know, just the genes I was born into, I guess. So, but you're right. The child at heart thing has a lot to do with it. And I think I had a very good childhood in that, like, imagination and the arts and pursuing the things that you want to do to a point were very much stressed in our home. And I think a lot of the sort of pitfalls, like playing too many video games or watching too much TV or any of those things, while I still, quite frankly, I don't know how I got away with doing so much of that. Because like we were limited to so much. It was like you're only allowed to watch this much TV. You're only allowed to play this many hours of video games a day. While initially the response was like, "Oh, my parents suck. I'm so mad." Once you cooled down, you found ways to entertain yourself, which ultimately for me led to the arts. My brother is a musician now, and he's a fantastic musician. He can play any instrument you can. You could take the things in your office right now, construct them into an instrument, and hand it to him, and he could play it because he just understands music theory so well that he would be able to play it. And so my dad was a classical guitarist. My mom is a guitarist, and she sings and she draws and paints. And so it was bohemia with regimen.
I understand that well.
My dad's a military man, and so there was a lot of that, like, figure it out kind of a thing, but be home by this time, get your homework done, do the things you need to do. No, you can't watch 15 hours of TV today. Like, go outside, draw, paint, play your instrument. So that childhood to me was vastly important. And I think I've latched onto that so much. I think to just know like how important that was to me. And so I've just used a lot of that, I guess, in what I do now.
That's fantastic. Fantastic.
Trying to stay on target. These are 9%. So.
Oh yeah, you're good.
And I had one, and I had a wine, and I had a shot before we started rolling. So here we are. So this is the start, right? We're just starting.
Yeah, we're just starting. I'm actually going to when we're done. I'm going to redo the intro.
Sure.
Throw that in.
I like it. Like, wow, he was real hammered, then sobered up at about the 17-minute mark.
Right.
I don't know what was he drinking, and then what did he drink suddenly to go from 17 to 18 that he was like that away, and then he just downhilled from there.
Right. It's like his metabolism is awesome.
Sriracha sauce. That's what it was.
Right.
Just snorted sriracha.
All right. Okay. So the last thing I've got really for you that I want to kind of use to spark our conversation, I've got to ask you, because I don't really remember. I remember there was a lot of drawing. There was a lot of, I'll get to it. Oh, geez, this thing still, wow. I got to know, has the Bic pen, has it ever ran out of ink?
Wait, you didn't watch the video?
I think I did, but it's like all blurry. You know, there's so many things. You got way too much going on, man. There's just
hold on.
Every time I turn around, Felix grabs this epic scroll of cartoons. Oh my God.
It's done.
What
I
is?
finished it.
Wow. It did finally run out. For everybody who's listening, I got to set this up. There was Felix decided he was going to take a Bic pen and try to determine how long it takes to dry the pen up. So he started drawing. There was like a little character, and then there was another one, then there was another one, and he was sharing it on social media. And I think you got to a point where it just seemed like it was never going to end.
I quit for like 3 months.
Yeah.
Because I was so mad. I was so mad about how long it was taking, and like I was dreading the end of the day. So like normally, 7:30, 8:30 rolls around, and like we put the kids to bed, and then I hang out with my wife for an hour. So we watch a show, and she falls asleep. She's a runner, so she wakes up at like 4 a.m. to run 1,000,000 miles. And so she generally tends to fall asleep early. So by like 9:30ish or so, that's usually like my cue to say, I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to work on some art, or I'm going to play video games or whatever. And I just found myself like dreading. Like I kept looking over. I'm like, don't fall asleep. Wake up. Let's keep watching this show. Like there's another episode. Stop. Don't do that. Because if you fall asleep, then I'm gonna feel guilty for not going downstairs and working on this stupid drawing. Like we need to keep hanging out because we need to spend time together. And so it got to a point where I had to stop because the pen ink, I found that when you wear out the ink in the pen, it takes a couple days for the actual like feedback for the pen, like the ink in the tube to sink down.
Yeah.
it's so tightly packed,
Yeah.
and there's so much air pressure in there, I guess, that like it's not like an immediate like whoop.
Yeah.
So you would do it, and it would be like it may drain like 0.02 of an inch, but it wouldn't show until the next couple days. And so I draw for like 2-3 weeks straight, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you not moving? Because I would put like a piece of tape on the top, like a piece of painter's tape to show like, okay, this is where I'm at. I'm like, this is going to be great. I could knock this out in like 4 days. Yeah, so that didn't happen.
Wow. So the engineers at Bic, they decided to create this tube that basically just kind of makes you feel like you got more than you really do.
They just snuck
like,
in my house at night with putting more ink into the pen. That's what they were doing.
Yeah, that's great. I know I seen the video. I know I did. I probably knew the answer to that, but I just had to bring it up. But
yeah,
man,
I finished it.
That is awesome. That is awesome. You're full of ideas like this. Like you painted you painted a controller with Rosco on it, and a PlayStation controller. Your one wheel, is that right? You painted a one wheel?
I painted the fender.
Oh, that's right.
So
that's
like
right, yeah.
you have like the one wheel, and then it's got like the additional fender you can purchase from them, which keeps like, so if you run through a puddle of water or mud or whatever, it keeps it from splashing up on you.
Yeah.
I ended up taking the fender off, partially because so many people were trying to ride the one wheel, which is great. I want people to try it. They're built like tanks.
Mm-hmm.
People always feel weird, like, oh no, did I break it? Like you didn't break it, trust me. But the fender kept getting scratched up because it would tip and scratch. And
yeah,
I put like 27 layers of varnish on it, but still, when it's scraping against asphalt 10, 15 times a day, it's going to get scuffed up. So I ended up just taking it off. But yeah, I did paint a fender for a one wheel, which they actually put out in their newsletter, which was kind of cool.
That is cool. That is really cool. That's one of the things I find with your level of creativity, your place in making stuff. It's amazing to me how much you just kind of get into it, and it's got to be hard to focus. It's like you just
what?
It's like you just show up one day and go, I think I'm going to paint a car. And then you get the Sharpie out, you start drawing, you do a little bit of painting, and then next thing you know, it's like, holy hell. But
there have been plenty of times when I start something, I'm like, this is the thing I'm going to do. And then you get 2 days in, you're like, why did I start this?
Yeah.
Why did I do this? It takes forever.
I'm thoroughly amazed with your creativity, though. It's like the whole world is your canvas, and it's like, I can't explain it. I hope everybody listening to the show goes out and gives Felix some love. Share this episode with everybody because it's really important that people know this guy exists, because he is really, in my opinion, one of those people who you never hear about, but damn, there is some talent there that needs to be exposed, and people need to see it, because you just do some really crazy stuff. How can people find you on the internet?
If you just search pretty much on any platform for Felix Schlater, Felix, and then that space bar, it's the longest button on your keyboard, and then Schlater, Schlater, or SCH later, as I like to tell people. I'm on every platform, almost every platform. Yeah, you can pretty much find me anywhere. YouTube, Instagram, TikToks. I was on Tumblr for a little while. That was a dark time in my life, so maybe don't look for me there.
That's great.
Yeah, and you got a website that hasn't been updated in years, so you can look at that. That's great. But yeah, Felix Schlater is generally, I've been trying to consolidate my usernames. When you're younger, you want cool usernames like Bomberman Wing Dude 72. And then as you get older, you realize like, oh, I want to apply for this accounting firm with Bomberman Wing Dude 72 at yahoo.com. I should probably start using my real name. So I think I hit that point at some juncture in my life. And so pretty much all my social media, you can find me at Felix Schlater.
Yes, very, very happy to have you on here, and cheers to you. It was a lot of fun. I really, really had a good time, and I will see you on the internets.
On all 4 of them.
All of them. Okay, we'll see you later, Paul. I just called you Paul.
Freudian slips all around.
I miss Paul, man.
Paul, it was nice. Yeah. Paul, I miss you.
This was actually Paul's glass.
This was Paul's hydro flask.
No, I did do that on purpose. This is getting kind of weird now, isn't it?
It's fine.
It's weird.
Just let it happen.
My Genki threw me off. He said, "How did it go?" Like we're supposed to be done.
Nope. This is an episode of I don't want to grow up, where we just keep going.
You do that too.
We're like, man, we should end it. Okay, let's go another 3 hours.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
Make us official Joe Rogan episode.
Let's keep digging.
Where's the DMT? Nuggets. We're going to talk about something stupid.
I've got 2 more of these, so
I got
I'm
more,
game.
And I've got plenty. I probably ought to not go beer to whiskey. That's like one of them faux pas.
Go for it.
No. So anyway, people go out. Everybody listening, really seriously, everybody listening, go out and give Felix some love and all that. And I hope you really enjoyed this episode. I did. This is the kind of episode that I really want to do more of. And now I'm going to say bye to Felix Schlater. See ya.
Goodbye, Michael Warth. It was nice talking with you.